In a quiet little village where the birds sang and the river whispered secrets to the wind, lived a boy named Zaid. Zaid was curious, the kind of boy who asked why the sky was blue, where the stars go during the day, and how dreams are made. But there was one thing Zaid never stopped thinking about: time. He was always in a hurry, rushing to school, rushing through meals, rushing to finish his homework, just so he could rush to do the next thing. He kept checking his wristwatch like it held the answer to life itself. One afternoon, while wandering behind his grandfather's old shed, Zaid stumbled upon something strange buried under vines and dust. An old clock, but not just any clock. This one was grand and tall, with carvings of stars and crescent moons etched on its frame. But the strangest thing, it had no hands. "That's weird," Zaid whispered. "How can it tell time without hands?" He dragged it inside and showed it to his grandfather, a wise man with kind eyes and a soft smile. "A clock with no hands?" His grandfather chuckled. "Ah, you found the clock of presents?" Zaid raised his eyebrows. "The what?" His grandfather leaned in. "This clock was never broken. It was built this way. On purpose." "But why?" "Because sometimes," the old man said, "we don't need to know what time it is. We just need to know that we're here. Now. Alive. Breathing. Feeling." Zaid didn't fully understand. Not yet. The next day, Zaid tried something new. Instead of rushing through breakfast, he closed his eyes and actually tasted his food. Instead of sprinting to school, he noticed the butterflies, the trees, the rustling leaves. In class, instead of counting minutes till recess, he listened, really listened to what the teacher was saying. Days passed, and something began to shift. He laughed more. He smiled wider. He felt lighter. One evening, Zaid sat beside the old clock, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and orange, and suddenly it all made sense. The clock doesn't need hands to be useful, he thought. It reminds me to stop counting moments and start living them. He no longer feared time slipping away, because he realized every moment was a gift waiting to be unwrapped. We spend so much of our lives chasing time, worrying about tomorrow, regretting yesterday. But sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the power to pause and just be. Like Zaid, let's learn from the clock with no hands. Live now. Breathe now. Be present. Because the real magic happens not in the past, not in the future, but in the moment you're living right now. If this story touched your heart, reminded you to slow down, like this video to show your love, share it with someone who needs a gentle reminder. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire your soul. The curious case of the clock with no hands reminds us time isn't running out. It's waiting for you to catch up. In the heart of a grand forest where sunlight filtered through thick canopies and rivers sang as they flowed, stood the two most admired trees. Okar, a thick, tall, unshakable oak tree, and Willowin, a soft, graceful willow tree that danced with every breeze. They had grown side by side since they were saplings, but over time their personalities grew very different. Okar stood like a soldier, firm, still, and proud of his strength. "I am the strongest in this forest," Okar often declared. "My roots run deep, my trunk is thick, and I never bend. That's what makes me unbreakable." Willowin, ever gentle and calm, would simply smile and reply, "Dear Okar, it's not always about standing tall. Sometimes the key is knowing when to bend." "Bend?" Okar scoffed. "That's weakness. Trees are meant to be solid, not swaying dancers like you." And so seasons passed. Okar remained proud and unmoving. Willowin swayed with every wind, bowed to every breeze, and learned the rhythm of the forest. One evening, the sky turned gray. Birds flew low. Animals rushed to their burrows. The air whispered of something powerful. A young pine sapling cried out, "What's happening?" An old crow cawed. "A storm is coming, a fierce one." As the winds began to growl, Okar tensed his trunk. "I will not move. Let the storm come. I will show the forest what strength looks like." Willowin instead closed her eyes and listened to the wind. She whispered, "This is not a time to fight. This is a time to flow." The storm arrived with fury. Lightning cracked open the sky. Thunder shook the ground. Wind screamed through the forest, grabbing branches, yanking leaves, ripping through proud trees like paper. Okar clenched every muscle of bark, resisting every push. But the storm didn't care for pride. It twisted, pulled, and suddenly crack. A deafening sound echoed. Okar, the mighty oak, fell. His massive body hit the ground, roots torn, branches shattered. But beside him, Willoween bent low, almost touching the earth. She swayed, she flowed, she let the storm pass through her. And when the winds finally died, and the first light of dawn broke through, Willowin stood tall once more. The forest awoke to silence. Where Okar once stood, now lay broken bark. The animals gathered, shocked. The younger trees whispered, "How did the mighty oak fall? And how did Willowin survive?" A wise old owl perched high above answered gently, "Okar thought strength meant never moving, but real strength is knowing when to stand still and when to move." Willowin survived because she didn't resist the storm. She moved with it. Willowin looked at the morning sun, dew glistening on her leaves like tears of gratitude. "I didn't give up," she said softly. "I simply chose to bend so I could rise again. Always remember that. The strongest people aren't the ones who never fall, but the ones who know how to bend, adapt, and rise again. In life, there will be storms, unexpected challenges, losses, and hardships. But those who survive are not always the hardest. They are the wisest, the flexible, the humble. Don't let pride hold you stiff. Let wisdom guide you through the winds of change. If this story touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Stories That Shine, because the world needs more stories that bend toward light. Every morning, students rushed into the school gates with laughter, books, and excitement. But Zara, a quiet girl with big brown eyes, walked slower than everyone else. On her back, she carried an old gray backpack. It looked heavier than the others. Some students whispered, "Why does she always look tired?" Others joked, "What's she carrying, bricks?" But no one ever asked her. What they didn't know was this. Zara's backpack wasn't filled with books. It carried her, guilt from a mistake she made last year, sadness from losing her pet, anger she never expressed when her friend betrayed her, and the fear that no one would understand her if she ever spoke. Every emotion became a brick, and every day she added more, quietly, without telling a soul. One rainy day, Zara walked slower than usual. Her shoulders drooped. Her breath was shallow. She barely noticed when the school counselor, Ms. Arifa, gently stopped her. "Zara, would you like to sit with me for a while?" Reluctantly, Zara nodded. They sat in a warm room filled with soft cushions and colorful books. Ms. Arifa pointed to her backpack and said, "May I ask, what are you really carrying?" Zara's eyes welled up. No one had ever asked her that. She slowly unzipped the bag and whispered, "I carry the things I'm scared to say out loud." That day, Zara didn't cry loudly. She didn't scream. She just spoke for the first time, and with every word, a weight lifted. Ms. Arifa listened without judgment. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush. At the end of the hour, Zara zipped her backpack again, but this time it felt lighter. As Zara walked home that evening, the clouds had parted. The air smelled of wet earth. She noticed something she hadn't in a long time: the sound of birds, the warmth of sunlight. Her own breath. She smiled, just a little, but genuinely. Because even though her problems weren't gone, she had learned that she didn't have to carry them alone. Remember, friends, we all carry things no one sees. But healing begins the moment you let someone see your load. It's okay to be strong, but it's also okay to ask for help. Letting go doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. If you've ever carried your own invisible backpack, know that you're not alone. Like, share and subscribe to Stories That Shine for more real stories that lift your heart. Once upon a time, in a mighty kingdom nestled between golden mountains and silver rivers, lived a wise and thoughtful king named Zafir. King Zafir was loved for his fairness, admired for his wisdom, but also known for his unusual lessons. One day he summoned the people of his court and laid 2 items on the royal table. One was a golden spoon, polished and shining, encrusted with rubies. The other was a simple clay cup, worn and cracked slightly on the rim. "Today," the king said, "you must choose only one. What you choose you must carry with you for a month. It will serve you in your journey through the desert for survival and meaning." "What will it be?" gasps echoed. Whispers buzzed. Everyone's eyes turned to the golden spoon. The prince, nobles, and merchants eagerly chose the golden spoon. "It's valuable," they said. "It's made of gold. Surely it holds power." But in the crowd stood a young orphan named Rami. He had been invited to the court after showing great courage by saving a child from a river flood. Quietly, Rami stepped forward and picked up the humble clay cup. The courtiers laughed. "A clay cup? From a royal table? What foolishness!" But the king only smiled. "Let them journey," he ordered. The group of golden spoon holders walked through the desert, flaunting their treasure. But as the days passed, thirst overwhelmed them. The golden spoons were beautiful, but useless in the scorching heat. They had no container to carry water, and gold grew hot under the sun. Meanwhile, Rami used his little clay cup to scoop water from rare desert springs. He sipped, he shared, he survived. By the time the month ended, only a few weary nobles stumbled back, exhausted and wiser. Rami, however, returned stronger, nourished and smiling. King Zafir stood before the survivors. "You chased value in appearance," he said gently, "but Rami chose purpose over pride. A golden spoon may glitter, but a clay cup gives life." He turned to Rami and bowed. "Today the kingdom learns that true worth is not in what glitters, but in what gives. Remember, friends, in a world that judges by looks, be the one who chooses by purpose, because sometimes what seems plain holds the power to save lives. Your value isn't in what you look like, what you wear, or how much you have. It's in what you do, how you help, and who you become." If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Stories That Shine. Your support helps us spread more light, one story at a time. Every day she cleaned that window. People laughed, but they didn't know what she was really trying to wipe away. Zainab lived alone in a tiny house at the corner of the village. Every morning she would sweep her front yard, boil her tea, and clean her one window. Rain or shine, cold or hot, no one knew why. Kids would walk past and say, "Why do you bother, Auntie? It'll just get dusty again." She would smile and say, "So will our hearts if we don't clean them daily." "Maybe she's waiting for someone," they whispered. "Maybe she's just mad." But Zainab kept on. Her hands were tired, her back curved, but she never missed a day. From behind that window she watched life go by. The school children, growing taller, the flowers blooming and wilting, the seasons changing, but no one ever came to visit her. One rainy morning, a young boy knocks at her door, soaked and scared. "Auntie, can I stay here for a bit? My parents are fighting again." She brought him in, made him tea, told him stories. That boy became her first regular guest. And then others came too. Young people sit with her drinking chai, smiling. Her window is spotless and shining. Over the years, that window became something else. A symbol. For the depressed teen, it was a place of safety. For the mother who lost her child, it was a place to grieve. For the lonely, it was warmth. They came not because the window was clean, but because the heart behind it was even cleaner. One morning, she didn't come. The village felt strange. For the first time in years, the window was not cleaned. A neighbor knocked. There was no answer. Inside the house, Zainab is seen resting peacefully, a soft smile on her face. A group of teens cleaning her window, now part of her old house, turned into a community space. The village turned her home into something special, a place for the broken, the burdened, the hopeful. And on that same window they etched her words, "Clean the window of your soul, so others may find their reflection in your light." Zainab never had a Facebook profile or followers, but she changed more lives than she ever knew. Not by shouting, but by quietly cleaning a window every day. If this story moved you, don't forget to share it with someone who brings you hope. And comment below, who in your life has been your window of light? Subscribe for more stories that shine. He had only one shoe, and people laughed at him. But when he gave it away, something incredible happened. Ibrahim was a poor village boy. Every day he walked 3 miles to school, not because he loved studying, but because school was the only place he felt seen. His foot hurts on gravel. Kids whisper and laugh. He only had one shoe, not one pair, just one shoe. His mother had found it in a garbage pile, cleaned it, and said, "It's not perfect, but it'll get you there." A teacher looks with pity but says nothing. "Ibrahim, why don't you wear the other shoe?" He stayed silent. He had learned long ago that explaining poverty doesn't make it disappear, but deep down, he believed Allah was watching. He believed that maybe, just maybe, this missing shoe was part of a bigger journey. On his way back, he saw another boy, younger, shivering, barefoot. Ibrahim looked at his only shoe, and without a word, he took it off. Ibrahim walks away, completely barefoot now, smiling softly, despite the pain. His foot bled, his steps were slow, but his heart was light. The next day, Ibrahim comes to school with bandaged feet. Everyone stares. The principal called him in. "Ibrahim," he said, "why are you barefoot today?" He quietly answered, "I gave my shoe to someone who needed it more." The principal smiles. A teacher enters holding a new box. "Someone saw what you did," he said. "Not just someone, a visitor from the city who runs a school for gifted children. He saw your kindness and your grades. He wants to give you a full scholarship." The boy who once walked with one shoe now had a path paved with opportunity. Ibrahim, years later, grown up, speaking at a school. Kids listen wide-eyed. "I used to think Allah had forgotten me," he says, "but I didn't know. Sometimes, blessings come through broken things. Even a broken shoe, one act of kindness, one broken moment, can open the doors to blessings beyond what you prayed for." So friends, never underestimate a small good deed. Allah sees what others ignore. If this story touched your heart, hit the like button. Share it with someone who needs hope today. And remember, sometimes losing something is how Allah gives us everything. Subscribe for more stories that shine. In the heart of an old town, nestled between tall, quiet trees, stood a library unlike any other. It wasn't flashy or famous. In fact, most people didn't even know it existed. It had no glowing signs or modern machines, just a wooden door, with a tiny golden plaque that read, "For those who are ready to listen." No one paid attention to it, except for a curious little boy named Ayan. Ayan was 10 years old, full of questions, and always looking for adventure. One rainy afternoon, while riding his bike past the quiet lane, he spotted the strange library. "For those who are ready to listen," he read aloud. Listen to what? His curiosity led him to push open the creaky door. The inside smelled like ink and old stories. The shelves were tall, packed with dusty books, and a strange silence filled the room. Then something unbelievable happened. Ayan picked up a book titled The Lost Explorer, and the book spoke. "Ah, finally. Someone who wants to hear my story," it said in a warm, wise voice. Ayan froze. You can talk?" The book chuckled. "Only to those ready to learn." Before he could respond, books from all around began to whisper, mumble, giggle, and call out. "I taught courage to a prince. I showed kindness to a bully. I helped a girl find her voice." Each book had its own personality, its own story, and its own lesson. One book shared a tale about a boy who lied so much. No one believed him when he told the truth. Another told of a girl who kept failing but learned to rise every time. Each story left Ayan a little more amazed, and a little wiser. Then, a heavy book glowed gold and floated down from the top shelf. Its title, Your Story, Ayan. He gasped. My story. The book said, every reader becomes a story, and every story has a choice. Learn the lesson, or live it the hard way. Ayan opened it, and the pages began writing themselves, with his name, his choices, his fears, and his dreams. It showed him where he failed to listen to his parents, where he gave up too quickly, where he could have helped but chose to scroll. Instead, tears welled up in his eyes. Can I change the ending? He asked. The book whispered. That's the beauty of it. You're still writing it. From that day, Ayan returned to the library again and again. He read stories of patience, bravery, humility, and forgiveness. And more importantly, he applied them. He started helping at home, became kind to his classmates, and even forgave his best friend after a fight. Soon, his friends noticed. Ayan, what's your secret? He smiled and said, I just started listening to stories. Today, the library still stands. It doesn't have Wi-Fi, no video games, no trending hashtags. But those who enter leave changed, because once you truly listen to a story, you don't just turn a page, you turn your life. So the next time you pick up a book, don't just read it, listen. Because every story holds a lesson. And the best stories are the ones that help you become the best version of yourself. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that move hearts and minds. Your next lesson might just be a story away. In a lively little town, in a cheerful school painted with bright blue walls, sat a classroom full of giggles, pencils scratching, and chattering voices. Among the chatter sat Amira, a quiet, thoughtful girl with big, curious eyes. She never shouted the loudest, never raised her hand first, and never interrupted anyone. Most people thought she was just shy. But Amira had a secret. She believed that words were like seeds. If you plant good ones, they grow into something beautiful. One day during recess, Amira noticed a boy sitting alone by the swings. His name was Rafi, a new student. His clothes were a little dusty, his backpack a bit torn, and his eyes a little sad. Other kids whispered about him. Why doesn't he talk much? His clothes are old. He's weird. But Amira didn't join the whispers. Instead, she walked up to him and said softly, Amira. Hi, I'm Amira. I like your drawings. Want to play after lunch? Rafi looked up in surprise. No one had really spoken to him, only about him. At lunch, Amira invited Rafi to sit at her table. She introduced him to her friends and even shared her favorite cookies. Soon, Rafi began to smile more. He laughed at jokes. He started drawing pictures again, only this time they were full of color and hope. The teacher announced a class project. Each of you will say something kind about the person next to you. Some groaned, some giggled. When it was Rafi's turn, he stood up, held his sketchbook, and turned to Amira. Rafi. A week ago, I thought nobody saw me. But then someone whispered kindness into my life. That whisper, it was the loudest sound I've ever heard. The classroom fell silent. A whisper had changed everything. The class later painted a mural on the school wall. In the middle of it was a giant tree. Underneath it were words in big, bold letters. Kindness doesn't need to shout to be heard. Amira smiled. She hadn't spoken the most words, but she had spoken the right ones. Sometimes the softest words carry the strongest messages. A kind word, a gentle smile, a small act of care. These things echo louder than anger or noise. So, be like Amira. Whisper kindness, and you'll speak louder than the world ever could. Like if you believe in the power of kindness. Share too. Spread good words and warm hearts. Subscribe for more stories that speak to the soul. On a sunny summer morning, the golden beach stretched far and wide, and the waves danced gently on the shore. Among the laughter of families and the scent of salty air, a little boy named Zayan arrived with a red bucket, a blue shovel, and a big dream. He was going to build the greatest sandcastle the world had ever seen. Zion worked with determination. He shaped towers, carved walls, even made a little moat around his masterpiece. His hands were covered in sand and his eyes sparkled with excitement. This is going to be the best castle ever. But just as he finished placing the final seashell, on top, splash! A sneaky wave rushed in and washed everything away. My castles, it's gone! Zion looks disappointed, sits quietly. Waves continue to roll in. He stared at the smooth, wet sand where his masterpiece once stood. Some children nearby laughed and played, but Zion just sat. For a moment, then he stood up. Zion was determined. No, I'm going to build it again. Even better this time. He dug deeper, packed the sand tighter, even moved a few rocks to block the water. He worked harder, smarter, stronger, but the waves, they didn't care about hard work. Crash, another wave, another collapse, again and again. His castle fell, but every time, Zion stood back up and built again. Other kids begin watching. One brings a shovel, another joins with seashells. People started noticing. Why do you keep rebuilding it? One girl asked, because it's worth it, I'll never give up. And soon, they joined him. Together, they built a sandcastle taller, stronger, and more beautiful than ever before, with towers, bridges, and even flags made of seaweed. And even though the waves came again, Zion smiled. Let them try, we'll build it again and again. Zion's sandcastle didn't last forever, but his spirit, that never-give-up heart, that stayed, in the sand, in the smiles, in everyone who watched him rise after every fall. So, friends, life will bring waves that knock you down, but true strength is in standing back up, again and again. So be like Zion, build your dreams, even if they crumble, because every time you rebuild, you grow stronger. Did this story inspire you? Like, share, and comment. I will never give up. Tag someone who needs a little motivation today. And don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Deep in the heart of Evergreen Forest, where the trees whisper secrets and the breeze carries magic, there stood a mirror unlike any other. Not one you hang in your room, not one that shows your hair or face. This mirror, it showed something much more powerful. Your thoughts, your actions, your heart. A group of kids hiking with their nature guide. Among them is Lila, curious and kind. Her eyes shine with wonder. Lila gasps. Look, what's that glowing between the trees? The group approaches a large, silver-framed mirror embedded in an ancient tree trunk. It shimmers but doesn't reflect their faces. The guide, smiling gently. That, children, is the mirror of the woods. It doesn't show what's outside. It shows what lives within. One by one, the kids step up. Some see scenes of helping others, smiling, trying their best. Some children saw kindness in action. Moments when they stood up for a friend, shared their sandwich, said sorry and meant it. But when a boy named Max steps forward, the mirror turns stormy. He frowns. Max, why is it showing me yelling at my brother and cheating in a game? Guide said because the mirror doesn't judge, it simply reflects. Your thoughts become choices, and your choices build your world. Max looks down, ashamed. Lila places a gentle hand on his shoulder. That means, if you change your thoughts, you can change what the mirror shows. Max nodded, and the next day, he helped a classmate, gave his brother a hug. When he returned, the mirror showed a sunrise, bright, hopeful. Lila steps forward. The mirror glows warm with golden light. It shows her comforting a friend, picking up trash, reading to her little sister. Lila's mirror didn't shine because she was perfect. It shone because she tried, because her thoughts were filled with light, and her actions followed. The kids walk away, the mirror fading gently behind them. So friends, the mirror in the woods may be hidden in a forest far away. But the real mirror? It's always with you. Every thought you think, every choice you make, shapes the world you live in. So think kindly, Act bravely, and let the world reflect your light. What does your mirror reflect today? If this story made you smile, feel braver, or think differently, tap like, click share, hit subscribe for more magical stories that make you feel strong inside. Let's grow kind hearts together.